Salutations and welcome into Not All There. I am your host, Chad. I am a recovering alcoholic. I am a sober coach, soberchad.com. I also do this podcast. I also coach like football and baseball. I'm a husband and a dad and a lot of other things. And I wouldn't be any of those if I wasn't sober, if I haven't been working my ass off in recovery. And that's what today's episode is going to be about, is working your ass off in recovery. And as you recover continuously from alcoholism, drug abuse, whatever your substance of choice is, it evolves as you evolve. And to continue to grow your recovery, being of service to others, carrying the message of hope, being joyful, that's what it's about, man. And I'm talking to James from Atascadero, California. And he is the fucking bee's knees, man. He's got a great story, as we all do. But what he's doing, he and his friends Nikki and Chris, they are starting the Waves of Hope sober living homes out there in the central coast of California. Everybody thinks of Southern California or Northern California. Of course, California's fucking huge, but they have the Central Coast, which is a surfer's paradise out there. Wicked cool. We got Morro Bay, San Luis Obispo, Atascadero. It's great. I highly recommend taking the trip out and checking it out. Good people, great surfing, just a really good vibe, and good people doing great fucking work. They're doing great fucking work, and I'm really happy that James and I are able to connect, call each other friend, and have a really great conversation. I'm stepping out of the way, and here is me and my friend James from Atascadero. Hello, James.
Hey, Chad.
How's it going, man?
Hanging in there? It's going good.
Okay. So you and I were just talking off mic, and you're in Atascadero, and I told you that I spent a week there one weekend about 25 years ago. And what's Atascadero like these days? Has it come around finally?
Atascadero, by Chicago standards, has not come around.
Okay.
But there are towns much like it right outside of Chicago. So it has become a little bit more mainstream. There's a lot more tourism.
Okay.
It's still quaint, small town by comparison to a lot of California's.
Sure. A lot of surfers around still. I mean, because I know the Central Coast was like a huge thing for surfers. Like, so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Still.
So, tell me a little bit about like what it was like for you growing up. What led you to where you are, and I mean, give us some details, man. Tell us about yourself.
Okay. So both my parents were nurses who put each other through school.
Wow.
This is back in the 80s. So, and they were late bloomers. So my mother was 30 when she had me.
Okay.
Still going to school.
Jesus.
And it was right around the tail end of the height of the crack epidemic. So they were tinkering with that, and they were still very functional. They were able to make stuff happen. And
wait, your parents were studying to become nurses and they were dabbling in crack?
Yeah. Whoa. Well, my dad did more than dabbled. My mom dabbled. My dad just couldn't stop. Yeah. At first.
Cool. Okay. All right. You got me now. I'm listening.
So I had a loving home.
Sure.
It was just very fragmented because they were goal oriented, right? Like I never wound up at a crack house or went hungry or any of that. Maybe some of the neighborhoods we lived in were a little, like not up to the scale of their education at first.
Sure.
But they were both pursuing careers. So it was kind of the kind of thing where like I'd be going to school and we'd wave to my mom on Nordoff coming from her shift. And I would see them as often as possible. And like I said, they were really good to me. There was no abuse, but there were certain things missing, right? Like there were certain experiences that a child should have that couldn't always be shared, and not necessarily because of the drugs. It was more so
They were
that
so focused on their goals,
mhm.
their career, that there was maybe some neglect that wasn't really.
A little bit of emotional
Yeah,
neglect.
yeah, sure.
And right,
Not
if we're
intentional, not
loaded,
intentional, but just it kind of happened, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
If we're loaded, we have an inability to recognize those things at some points.
Right.
Um, so I wasn't abused or any of that stuff in that sense, but there was a kind of like, I'll just put it this way: there was like, it was a blue collar culture,
Okay.
right? So it's a
Yeah.
put your head down and go kind of atmosphere.
Yep.
So I was raised, we moved a lot, and eventually they kind of settled down on that stuff. You know, my dad was able to put the pipe down on his own,
Wow. Okay.
and he didn't quite understand people who couldn't.
Oh,
My mom was an alcoholic, was her get down. That was
that was it. Okay.
her thing. So when I was around the age of 10 is when, right, I started becoming a little more self-sufficient, and she was able to pick up again. And she didn't get a lot of support from my dad. And my dad would keep liquor in the house, and there was constant promises and relapse,
Yeah.
stuff like that. A
Yeah.
lot of heart, you know, a son
She
to
meant
his
it.
mother, a lot
Yeah.
of heartbreak
Yeah.
in
Oh,
the home.
yeah.
But they always maintained a job. Um, right, like, so they were a, a good example of what I thought a functioning addict could be.
Yeah.
And they were educated, right? My dad was educated, so I'm not going to say that it was okay to be an addict, but it wasn't a foreign concept, and we were in touch with that part. And it was like, as long as you could maintain it,
Have
um
fun.
yeah, have fun, but you know, it could be done, was
Yeah.
the message that I got.
Oh.
So yeah, that was kind of the notion which I was operating under, was that it was kind of a normal thing, right?
When did you start? I mean, did you start with drinking or cigarettes, dope? What happened?
So I was always allowed to drink a little bit, you know, like
Yeah.
Christmas, here, try a shot of that,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, sure, sure.
that kind of thing. But really, so I started around the age of 13. It was the summer between junior high and high school, which was later than a lot of my friends.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Um, the first thing I ever did was white out. That was the first
Oh,
thing.
really? You were a
Yeah,
huffer.
yeah, that was the first thing I ever did, and I did it in a Mormon church because the doors were always open. So like, I, I have
Oh,
no
yeah.
problem committing, man. If I'm gonna go dirtball, I go full dirtball.
Yeah,
I do
man.
it to
Why
be
mess
dirty,
around? Why mess
you know.
around?
That's so. But how I, because I was so against it because of my history up until that point, my
Yeah,
family history.
for sure.
But I had one really good friend who I didn't know that he was smoking weed and that kind of stuff. For probably like 2 years, I've been friends with him, and he was a good person, and he got good grades and matched up. And when I found out he did, like the bad rap was removed, and I just had permission,
Mm,
right? Because
right. If he
I
can
was
do it,
comfortable.
yeah, he can do it. I've seen other people do it. This is just what you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get down and you get work done.
Yeah, and like I said, I commit, man. My dad was a child of the '60s, and it wasn't more than 2 weeks before I started messing with hallucinogens and stuff like that. I had the plug right off the bat.
Yeah, that's how it
Uh,
was with me, man.
was it?
Yeah, well, mine was alcohol when I started. I had a beer at 18. I was a late bloomer. So I had my first real beer at 18, and within 2 weeks I was, down in a fifth of Jack Daniels around a campfire. So yeah, it was like it hit me, and it hit me hard. And it's funny because it's not always that way with people like us, but I don't know. It's always comforting to hear from somebody that's like, oh man, it took me, and it took me quick. So, I mean, so from huffing, what were you dropping acid? Were you eating shrooms? How'd it go from there?
So dropping acid, mushrooms, ecstasy was really popular.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, and you know, since my parents were working so much, can I backtrack just a little
Oh
bit?
yeah, man, whatever you need to. Yeah.
So this all happened in the my mom was she was in rehab,
Okay.
right? So things had gotten like really bad at home. And my dad was doing he's a dialysis nurse, so that's on call.
Yeah, all the
And
time.
I had very low supervision. Um and I was going through a hard time. And something that my mom used to do was she'd give me her ATM card so I could take care of myself.
Mm.
Well, that knowing that PIN number and then
Took care of
developing different
yourself.
interests,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I had whatever I wanted in that sense, right? And I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I would have thought bigger because I could have, right? If I wasn't thinking like a drug addict, I wouldn't have used
Yeah.
it all.
Yeah,
I
right,
could have been
man. Right.
retired by now.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, God. So
No, but
true.
what it did was is it enabled me to immerse myself in the culture without having to devote any time to earning those funds,
Right.
right? So
Right.
I was able to live outside my means, I guess. And
So what was high school like then? So did it progress throughout high school, or did you just kind of
oh
maintain
god,
like an even keel? I mean, were you that guy in high school?
I didn't finish high school, I'll tell you that
Okay.
much.
All right. Well, there we go.
So I was a really good athlete. I went to my parents, I was in a private school.
Okay.
I was in a Christian private school. I won't mention the name just because.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but I was also baptized Mormon. So everywhere I went, I was in conflict,
Yeah.
right? And so I just took on the identity of a rebel. And I was really good at sports. People liked me for no good reason. And a lot of exceptions were made for me as far as education and commitment to conduct and stuff.
Mm,
So I could return to keep playing. And that's not a disservice. That was a missed opportunity on my part. I don't look
yeah.
at it like how could they do that to me? They should have gotten me. No. Um, so I had a huge double life. Not every kid at the Christian school was sneaking out, stealing money from their parents, and taking cab rides home at 4 a.m. to go to school at 6. You know,
Oh, no, that's not normal.
oh, it was wild. I don't need to go into war stories, but that was the schedule. You know,
Really?
yeah,
Wow. Wow.
and yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, no, that's good. So, all right. So when did you quit school?
I this is where things like really
Yeah.
branched over into getting immersed in addiction and like really committing to it. It wasn't fun. So I got thrown out
Okay.
for like getting caught with some drug or something like that. And I went to a public school. And what happened was is I wasn't special anymore,
Yeah, you were just a kid.
right? Yep, it was harder to get to know people. I just kind of blended in with the crowd, and that was a huge ego blow to me
Mm,
that I wasn't geared up to deal with. My parents were so good to me and built me up, right? As far as our one-on-one interactions, that I wasn't prepared for reality. I had been sheltered in a lot of ways.
yeah, these expectations have been set. Like you're sort of, more or less like the golden child, right?
Yeah,
You're the star
exactly.
athlete and like, oh, okay, we'll just let this one slide, and then yeah, you find out that you're not special like you thought you were.
Hmm. And I was not geared up for that. So, needless to say, it's close to Venice Beach, right? I grew
Yeah.
up in Simi Valley.
Yep.
So, if I could get somebody to ditch school with me, which wasn't that difficult because now everybody was smoking something,
Sure.
um, and then I had a ride down to Venice. And I spent probably a year in Venice instead of going to school. So I got thrown out of public school. Didn't even finish my junior year,
Uh,
and yeah, saw a lot of gnarly stuff
I bet you did, dude. I
down
bet
there.
you did.
But and it wasn't long after that that I met this girl who had a worse home life than I did, and she was a really sweet girl. She had good values, just terrible guidance.
Yeah.
And in San Fernando Valley, this is now the height of the meth wave,
Yeah.
right? So we were exposed to that at so it was between the ages of 17 and 18 where I started hitting the meth pipe. And I was just fully committed. So that relationship didn't totally work out, needless to say. And I had this habit now, and I never had to work for anything. So, and being a really fast runner and a really big risk taker, right? Like I
Yeah.
knew at that age I could almost run over anybody that got in my way. I
Yeah.
became a really good thief,
I bet you
you
did,
know?
man.
Yeah. And if you caught me, you couldn't catch me,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Exactly.
So, and
Well,
then
it like
that,
became you embrace the identity, right? I embrace the identity of being a drunk, you know? I mean, whatever it was that, I mean, it's all consuming, right? Whatever led you to where you were at this point in your life, it doesn't really matter, but just like any of us who suffer from it, man, we get to a point where it's almost like you're defeated and you embrace that identity. You're like, well, guess I'm a meth head now. I'm gonna go steal some shit. Well, I guess I'm a drunk. I'm
yeah.
just gonna go mess around and burn it all down. It's so many people who have come through the other side that are sober and in recovery that it's I wouldn't say it's across the board, but more often than not, it's this sense of defeat, and we accept that we're defeated, and well, this is just who we are in life. Not what I pictured, but this is who I am. And how long were you on that run with meth?
Oh, until I was lucky enough to get addicted to heroin.
Oh,
So
okay.
no, 17 years, 17
17
years.
years.
Though, so it was the whole run from 17 to 34. It was always part
My
of my
God,
regimen.
man.
That's Nikki.
Hi,
She's my
Nikki.
business partner.
So wow, that's rugged, man. I am sure you have been to places and seen things that no one really should be a part of. I mean, I've heard far too many stories about that. We don't need to get into that part of it.
Okay.
Um, so what was it that got you sober? Was it a one-time deal? Would you get sober and done, or was it a process?
No, it was not. It was a process.
Yeah.
And I'm a, in retrospect, um, my belief is that recovery started once I realized that drugs were not the solution.
Yeah.
So that was long before I was able to quit using,
Right.
right? But my recovery started when I realized,
This isn't working anymore.
yeah, and it's still, it's a part of me. So it still took time to get rid of.
Yeah.
It's kind of like trying to get a baby off of a bottle,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
for sure.
So I think I can narrow it down to a moment.
Okay.
Um, my mom would let me live at her house, in and out, in and out. You can't live here if you're doing that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, sure.
And I wound up. I had a lot of homeless friends,
Sure.
and this particular night, it was raining. I was lucky enough to find a friend of mine, and he said you could use my camp. And I was in his tent, and the sleeping bag was wet, and he was probably like the most successful homeless person I knew. Like, this is as good as it gets if you're homeless.
Yeah, you got a tent, man.
And I just the only thing I could think of is the methadone clinic was right around the corner. And I'm like, I need to go back home. Like, whatever my mom wants me to do, I gotta go back home. And I'm so blessed. This is one thing I realized is most people don't have that.
Yeah.
And so I started attending the methadone program, and it was just to pacify her at first.
Yeah, sure.
And then there's therapy that's coupled with that,
Uh-huh.
cognitive
Yep.
behavioral therapy, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And I was lucky because I had some good looking counselors, so it kept me coming back. Um,
Southern
not to
California,
mention,
man. Northern
yeah,
California. What are you gonna
yeah, it helped.
do?
It helped. So that's when I would say, because I had been to a couple meetings before, but it was mostly just because that's where addicts go. And
Yeah,
I've been to rehabs and a lot of stuff the court would give me instead of going to jail because I knew
sure.
I could run away.
Yeah.
So my
The same,
exposure to
the song and
recovery,
dance, the song and dance. Like, yeah,
yeah.
I'll do whatever you want me to get me out of this thing. Sure, whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But that was the day, and my mom said, "Okay, I'll let you back if you start that." And here, I don't know what it's like everywhere else. It was $21 for a 21-day thing, 21-day detox. That doesn't work. Not for you
Yeah.
know, not for
Yeah.
everybody.
Right.
So that was it. And it still took 4 or 5 years,
Yeah.
right, to break the habit of linking up with people that weren't good for me and being able to identify, like, because I was an IV user. So the first step was to get away from IV use for me.
Okay.
And that's what took a while. And then this is where I believe, like they say, progress, not perfection.
Yeah, man.
And this is why I don't, can I cuss?
Oh, absolutely, man.
This is why I don't shit on people when,
Yeah.
they speak about being California clean or I've been clean off this, but not this, is because it's still progress, even if it
Yes.
doesn't.
Yes.
You're still picking up the ball and throwing it, even if you're not at Yankee Stadium yet.
Yeah, man.
It still counts as something.
Yeah.
So I'm huge on that. I choose to be abstinent. I feel like that's where I get the best results. But I don't think that not continuing the process of recovery because you're not where you want to be yet, or begrudging somebody because you're not where you want to see them yet.
Absolutely, man. You know, it's really hard to get sober, to get clean, right? And it's even harder to stay that way. And if, I know plenty of people that have come in, gone out, come in, gone out, come in, gone out. And it's like, just keep it up, man. Like, I'm not going to give you a hard fucking time. Like,
No,
I was lucky. It was a one shot deal for me, but look, that's just me. And who am I to judge, right? Who am I to judge? I did stuff that I'm not proud of, as most of us do. And I'm not going to sit on some soapbox, some throne, and look down on somebody that's like, well, what a loser. It's not sticking. It's like, just keep at it. It's progress, man. It's progress. They don't call it a demon just for any old reason. Like, it keeps pulling at you and pulling at you and pulling at you. So you what so you did you relocate up to the Central Coast then to get sober? Is that what it was? To get out of
no,
town? Okay.
no. I don't need, I don't think, I don't want to go into the total story, but
No,
my
no, we don't
mom
have to.
moved up here
Your mom did. Okay.
and I had so much criminal stuff going on. I was on my way to prison. I got charges in LA a couple times, in Ventura, and then caught a new charge in San Luis for like my first week here. Um, I was on my way to prison, and it was just so, yeah, I tried to take advantage of it, but
Sure.
like my first job was at a Denny's. It's the only 24-hour place that's open in Atascadero. And looking back, now I know why I wanted to work
Uh-huh.
at Denny's. And I'll tell you,
Yeah.
the only thing worse than being spun out and thinking people are looking at you is knowing that everybody's looking at you. It was
Yeah.
terrible. But no, I moved up here because this is where my mommy was. I wanted to
Okay.
be with mom, and it
Of
was able
course.
to, walk away from a lot of shit that I created.
Yeah. Oh man. But you know what? I uh I had created kind of a mess in my life when I was living in Portland, and an aunt of mine was like, "Well, why don't you come down to San Clemente and we'll set up some trade shows up in LA and San Diego?" And I was like, "That sounds great. I will be there in a week or whatever it was." And I don't know, I was out there for 6 months or whatever, but um, it really started to progress for me, and thankfully. I'm grateful that I had not gotten so far down the path that I was ready to say fuck it to everything. But everybody I was hanging out with, they were all speed freaks. And so I was like, I had enough sense left in me to be like, I gotta get out of here or I'm gonna die. But my point is that, you can relocate, but it's still gonna follow you. Getting away from where you're living, it just comes right with you because you're the problem.
Yeah. And looking back, what I always like to say is that I had to build a case to get where right to decide to get clean and sober. I
Yeah,
had to build a case, right?
yeah,
And so that means I had to get rid of all the undeniable. I had to build a case of undeniable facts. And it meant no matter where I went, no matter who you introduced me to, or what opportunity you gave me, I wound up in the same place through my choices.
yep,
And I had to take all the options, exhaust them all, and fail them all just to get to a point to start.
yes, yeah,
And then, and my other part is when you get here, you need to build a case to stay,
absolutely,
right? Keep
absolutely,
keep living positive experience to positive experience, and you'll have a case,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
that's why I think abstinence, that's why I appreciate abstinence more, is because you have some clarity of mind
you do.
and a frame of something to refer from.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's that is absolutely true. Because life doesn't stop when you stop using, right? I mean, it keeps going, and it's a matter of, well, how am I going to deal with this and stay clean and sober? So did you live in any sober living, or did you stay with your mom most of the time?
So no, I had to do it on my own. I stayed with my mom,
Okay.
and
How was
I
that?
had been in a lot of county facilities,
Okay. Sure.
right? So I never had to live in a sober living setting with like just 12 men. It was always like 60, 70 guys.
That's a
It
good
was
time.
more of like a corral
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Um, but when I moved up here, and one thing I wanted to touch on is how important, what a difference the one individual makes
Yeah.
as far as being a quality person. So when I moved up here, I had a lot more contact with quality people on an intimate level. And thank God Atascadero is so small because half the meetings are at sober living homes.
Mm.
So I got familiar with the culture. And what I realized is there's a whole other separate brotherhood and a commitment to each other that's fostered outside of the fellowship, but with the foundation of recovery, and how valuable that is to be able to talk to somebody kind of outside of judgment. Like when we go to
Yeah.
meetings or
Yeah.
anything that's scheduled, you
Yeah.
get this, it's easy to be a good boy,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
But
You
when you have
show
a
up
whole
for an
bunch of,
hour. I got to keep it together for an hour.
yeah.
But what's it like when it's 4 o'clock in the morning and you're going to work and your friend calls you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and there is, I don't know, for lack of a better word or a phrase, it's like a secondhand. It's a language almost. It's like a feeling. Like you don't. Sometimes you don't really even have to say anything. You just understand, and that's a very powerful feeling, and it's a very powerful place to be. And not everybody can get in tune with that kind of stuff. And when you do, and you can turn that around and use it to start helping others try and find that in themselves, that's when that's when the real work begins, because it's real work for yourself too, because it's a reminder of, if I don't keep this up, I can backslide and end up back what I was doing, and we all know how that's going to go, and I'm going to end up in a box in the ground. So I want to get to what it is that you and you and your friend are working on. But if you wouldn't mind, what kind of led you to that moment where you realized, hey, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. This other thing is what I'm really supposed to be doing. Was it one thing? Was it a series of events? Was it a long road? What led you to that almost moment of clarity, if you will?
So first, I'll start with the gift of desperation, right? Waking up every morning, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but feeling like something's missing.
Yeah, I can relate to
Praying
that.
about it every day, and I
Yeah.
still feel like something's missing. I'm working as hard as I can. Something's missing. And it's hard, pumping concrete's hard. You get exhausted.
Yeah, Jesus. Yes.
But then I don't know if you're familiar with Grant Cardone.
No.
If Okay, he's a business guy. He's a real estate guy.
Okay.
But what he brought up, this is when it like exploded for me, right? So I have all this program, I have this negative incentive. I know what I don't want.
Right.
Um, and one of the things that he brought up was that I am my brand,
Right.
right? I am my own brand. And so for some reason, my mind just said, like I have a lot more value than I'm giving myself, and expecting other people to see it is not realistic, right? Like I can't keep doing the same job expecting a raise or an attaboy or any of that.
Standing out there
Um,
pumping concrete, and somebody's like, "That's him.
yeah,
That's the one."
no. And so all of this is happening, right? And my dad, do I have a little bit of time for a back for a,
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, it's your floor, dude. You go for it.
okay. My dad in it, he was not an altruist by any means. But my parents were divorced, and he convinced my mom, like, hey, we should pool our funds together and buy a house and make it work for us so we have something to leave our kids. We'll live together. We don't have any money saved up. You're still working. My mom's 70 years old, still working as a nurse. And he got sick shortly after that. And he became terminal, decided that he didn't want treatment. But in that time, we talked about how are we going to basically make the future better
Yeah.
through this investment. And that caused me to look at like, hey, like I have to look at what do I have right now that I can get results from. I have a good program. I have a great network of people that I've built that they care about what I do, not just useful people,
No, they really
people,
care.
mhm,
They really
quality
care.
people. And I said,
Yeah.
what can I do with that? And then, like I said, my friend and I had been talking about it. He was talking about it with his wife, and they were holding off a little bit. Like they're more pensive and precise.
And this is sober housing, right? They had this idea to
Yeah,
start
and
sober housing. Like a
exactly.
would it be like a transition sober housing, or would it be like, would recovery or program be affiliated with it? What's sort of the idea behind it?
The whole idea behind it was to where we are, and where we are, we're very limited on sober living homes.
Yes.
But
I
the
think
whole
you can say
idea
that for
behind it,
everywhere. I think
yeah,
everywhere really
of
truly is. But yeah,
course.
sure. In your community, it's the sparse.
So the whole idea behind it was to raise the bar for the living conditions
Yes.
so that recovery could be focused on a little bit easier, right? So when you got people trying to, when you have a government that's trying to just stack people on top of each other, right? You're creating more stuff to filter through, and it's
Yep.
hard for an individual to focus on themselves and their recovery.
Yes, it is.
So we didn't necessarily um, decide that we need to change the numbers or anything, just the style of living.
Okay.
And so that's the whole idea, is to create a competitor that inadvertently raises the standard for everybody around us. And we will continue to have a standard that exceeds whatever's expected.
I love it. So, are
It's my
you?
buddy's idea.
No,
Yeah.
it's a great idea. No, I completely understand it because as we were talking before we started doing this, was that you and I are on similar trajectories in our lives. Like there was a moment where I realized that I am not whatever I'm doing to pay the bills is not it's not fulfilling anything for me. I feel like uh each day sort of, a piece of me is dying and that I'm wasting an
Uh-huh.
opportunity to do something with what I've been given. And it took me a long time to get to the point where I understood that I had been given something, not just I was able to get sober and I was able to, work out a lot of, you know, mental and emotional issues that I needed help sorting through. But I have this opportunity and ability to help others in, I wouldn't say unconventional way, but I guess it's a little unconventional doing like talking with you and talking about what you do and what you want to be doing, having people over at my house. And I realized that all of this shit that I went through, that I used to use as excuses for getting fucked up, you would too if this happened to you. What happened to me wasn't right, and if it happened to you, you would, do just as much as I'm doing. So back off. And I realized that all of that, even the shit in sobriety that happened, it happened for me to put me in a position that I can now turn it around to help others. And I I don't know about you, but the motivation I have now is like it's hard to even contain, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's really wild. And I think you can, well, what you want to be doing attests to this is that right now, and it will only continue to grow, is that there's a so many people out there, tens, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that need help with addiction, whatever it is, from whiteout to alcohol to heroin to meth, whatever, right? Drugs, sex, food. I mean, people need help. And there are very few resources available to help people. And you can rely upon, municipalities and states and counties, but really, I firmly believe that it's going to come down to people like what we're doing. But if we can get more people who have this lived experience, who know what it's truly like to get involved and get out there and start helping other people, it's going to stick more, because if it's like what you mentioned with the almost like the brotherhood aspect of the sober living, that it it's one addict helping another one because you feel alone, you feel like no one's going to understand you, you feel like you feel like scum. But when you talk to somebody that has lived the life that you're living in one way or another, it's very, very powerful. And we need more of that out there. And I think it's awesome that you and your friend are working towards that.
Yeah, it's the best. And like the coolest thing is how you touched on that you just felt like you weren't living your purpose. I'm rephrasing it.
Yeah.
But recovery can be expressed in so many different ways. And through a sober living, right? It gives it a digestible flavor. It's just one more flavor, right, of recovery.
Yeah.
And what's really cool, the whole experience, and my friends and I have talked about this, is that it aligns with our principles, right? Principles that we think
Yeah.
are paramount.
Yes.
And then what it does is by taking on the responsibility of reflecting these principles, it makes us better people.
Mm-hmm.
right? On top of whatever we do for ourselves in our own recovery. Like living in servitude as a job makes us better people, and it makes the experience of life better for us. And it's a little nuts right now. Everything's in
Yeah.
process, it's being
Yeah.
born, but there's no birth without blood,
Oh,
right?
hey, right,
So
man. Nah, dude, it's yeah. I completely understand that. I know right where you're at. Like it gets a little gnarly, but it it's the good kind. It's like, it is like the good getting your hands dirty. Like I know that I'm taking some lumps. I know that I'm taking a huge risk. I know that it's a little scary, but what I do know is that what I'm doing is the right thing. And that
that's right.
I can prove to myself, I've already proved to myself that with time and diligence and focus, I can get it done because I'm still sober, right? Um, so what's the name of do you have an organization or what's the name? What are you working?
It's Waves of Hope Recovery LLC.
Okay. And do you have any properties yet or a property? Are you working toward that?
Yeah, we have one, and we've been open for about 3 months.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, and it's progressing beautifully. Like I think there's common problems that come up.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got a couple cats
No, that's okay, man.
that have made it rather exciting, but um it's just we got a group of guys, a couple of them are our own friends, right? That
Oh, that's
fall in the
awesome.
criteria we were talking about the
Yeah.
other day, and
Yeah.
it's so good to be on the same level
Yeah.
and have a purpose that we're able to serve and implement, right? And actually help people that we love dearly,
Hmm.
right? And what's been cool is the whole thing of being vulnerable,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
because it's not a meeting situation. It's not anything like that. It's very informal in a respect. And these guys know who we are. They know us personally. Whoa.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Some people might want to call it oversharing. And it's like, no, it's just being, if you want to talk about, being one's authentic self, it's like, I mean, this is what I am and who I am. I mean,
yeah.
that's it.
So
Take it or leave it, man. That's up to you. But it is a very freeing place to live in that mindset. The vulnerability, be able to have that intimate relationship with another person in that way, like you do with your friends.
mhm.
Um, wow, James, this has been awesome. I'm really happy that we finally got to connect and make this
Yeah, same here.
work.
Same here.
All right, so what again? Share the name of your organization.
Waves of Hope Recovery LLC.
Awesome. And do you guys have a website or anything like that up and running?
Not yet. We're
Okay,
we're just we're flying, man. We're just
I love
hammering
it.
out everything at the pace at which it's delivered to us. So we do have somebody working on it though.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, this has been great. I'm really happy we were able to connect and good on you, man. Way to do the good work.
Thanks.
All right. You take care.
Yeah, you too, Chad.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, James. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you to the fine folks of Atascadero. I did spend a week there one weekend. Oh my God. Oh, Jesus, 25 some odd years ago. Took a trip up to Atascadero with a cousin of mine, and there was a punk band in a garage. And anyway, it was memorable. I do need to make it back out there so I can make amends to Atascadero. Maybe this conversation with James will help towards that. Before I step out of here, just want to let you know I'm sober coaching now. Sober coach, sober companion, soberchad.com. You can reach me at chad@soberchad.com. And if you're struggling, hang in there, man. Hang in there. It is tough work, I know, but it is so, so worth it. Keep up the work. Reach out. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, okay? You're becoming the person you've always wanted to be. Don't be afraid of being that person. I was for a long time. Took me a while to get through that, and I did, and my life is fucking amazing. So I'm here to help people do that. I'm here to help people get through the hard stuff, to find the joy, to find the happiness, and to continue to carry that on to other people. Be kind and loving to yourself, okay? You can do that. Be kind and loving to others. Listen. Don't hate. Don't be afraid of them. Just listen. We need to listen more. Give yourself a hug. Don't forget to hug your mom. All right. You guys take it easy. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.